What most athletes don't understand is that they're actually not just an athlete, they're a brand. They're building their own business, essentially, that has different departments and different aspects of that business. And it's super important for us to realize as younger athletes and parents alike to start educating ourselves on the business side of sports, not just the physical side of sports. We always invest in trainers, we invest in, the coaches and so forth, and we invest in, clubs to go play ball outside of just high school and whatever it may be. But how often do we invest in the business side of things? How often are we talking to financial advisors? How often are we talking to agents? How often are we doing those types of things and doing our research to make sure we're setting our athletes up for success, not only at the next level of sports, but after their sports careers are over? Well, today we're going to be talking to a financial advisor, a financial expert in the sports field. She's fantastic. She's going to be breaking it down for us, specifically in the real estate world. She's got a lot of knowledge when it comes to real estate and helping athletes with their investments. You don't want to miss this episode of the Gametime Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Gametime Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Gametime Guru podcast. I am your host, Shane Larson. Get a couple of the housekeeping items out of the way right now as we get ready for this awesome interview today. First and foremost, want to give a special shout out to all the listeners. We're in 92 different countries, 72,000 downloads of the show. Thanks in large part to everybody who's been listening, who has contributed in some form or fashion, whether you've shared the show, whether you've been on the show, or whether you've just been listening the whole entire time or supported me on social media, whatever it may be. Appreciate every single person that has been part of the journey the last 5 years upcoming in January. It'll be 5 years. So we appreciate everybody for the support. If you guys haven't done so already, all I ask is to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps the algorithm of the show, gets it into more people. That's how we've been able to expand it into 92 different countries, is because people leave reviews on the podcast. So if you listen to this, you like the interview, go leave me a review. Let us know what you think of it. And let's get that out to more people. Joining the show today, it's going to be a special opportunity for us to hear from someone who is in the sports industry and not necessarily the athlete, but working with the athletes in a very unique way. And we're going to learn more about her story and what impact she has on the sports world. Her name is Chrissy Sanders, and she's coming to us today. So Chrissy, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. And shout out to Rebecca for connecting us. I appreciate that.
Yes, shout out Rebecca Harris. She was just a guest on the podcast a couple of weeks back. I just got her book actually in the mail. So shout out to Rebecca. For all the listeners out there, if you have guests and recommendations, please send them my way, because now I've got connected with Chrissy, and that's a connection through a guest that I've had on the show. So if you're a listener or a guest, say, hey, this might be a good person to interview, hit me up. I love interviewing people. I love hearing their stories. So that's how me and Chrissy are chatting today. So Chrissy, give us a little bit of background about, I guess, your sports background before where you're at right now, which we'll get into. Like, what's your sports background and the knowledge of sports? Were you ever into sports before you got to what you're doing today? Like, give us a little bit of a background so we understand where you're coming from.
So I was pretty terrible at dodgeball, and I was always picked last. So no, in gym class, no. In all seriousness. So how I got involved in sports, actually, it's such an interesting story. So I started off doing automotive marketing, right? So I was doing automotive marketing for a couple different brands. And then I was recruited to BMW to, do marketing for them. And so I started meeting guys who needed to basically get endorsement deals. And so I was meeting NFL players, I was meeting WNBA players, all types of people, because in the brand role that I was, doing sponsorships, I was doing licensing, I was doing, TV deals, all of that, official car of the Cleveland Browns, all of that type of stuff. So and I also noticed that when people would sit down in front of me, they didn't really know exactly how to build a quantitative case. They would just say, hey, so-and-so has 80,000 followers or, 1 million followers or whatever, give them a card. And so when you don't know how to build a quantitative case, then a lot of times like you leave money on the table for the player that you're representing, because like, you know, people are romanticized by sports, but you have to understand that when you're sitting across from a brand, like these people are business people, and they're looking for analytics. They're looking for KPIs, like key performance indicators that essentially, I don't know if I could cuss on this show, but like, can you like put asses in seats, which is like, can you sell cars? Can you sell t-shirts, whatever the case may be? So it's like, I've noticed that a lot of people didn't know how to fully build quantitative cases. So they would under ask, or they were asked incorrectly, and then it would just cost people money. So when people started coming to me, I saw the area of opportunity, and super weird. So how I actually started the agency that I started was, I was in the same country club as the guy who started IMG with Mark McCormick. His name's Arthur Lefebvre. And so this is in Cleveland, Ohio. At the time, it had to be, I forget what year it was, but it might have been like 2016. So I was like 23, 24 years old. And so I emailed him, like the audacity, like this goes to show you how you're not even like thinking about like the gravity of the people you're talking to. I just was so focused on my mission, and I didn't want to fail. So I was like, hey, we're members of the same country club. Can you meet with me and show me how to run my sports agency? And he reached out to the membership director at the Union Club and was like, you know, this girl just emailed me, like, and he's like, all right, I guess she is a member. So like, he's like, all right, you know, come through. And, you know, he said, hey, you got like 15 minutes. I ended up staying a couple hours. And he kind of talked me through, you know, how he started with Arnold Palmer and all these different things. And we had that meeting, and then I structure it. He's like, you're going to be great because you don't like sports that much. And he's like, for what you're doing. And I was like, yeah, I don't like sports, but I do like helping people. And I felt like I could make a difference. So that's where it kind of got started. So fast forward to where I'm at now. And I was like, well, again, I've always been like a think ahead type of a person. So I'm looking at the stats, not the stats, but I'm looking at the trends, and I'm like, okay, more and more athletes the last thing we need is more representatives. Like, we don't need more people that are teaching athletes how to basically be reliant upon other people. We need to teach people how to run their business. So I started getting involved with venture capital and real estate investing, because I noticed that there would be this drop off where people are like, oh, like athletes spend all their money. Like, not really. It's just like they don't really know, because they don't have, they're not directly involved with their project, which is themselves. So, you know, so I started getting on the investment side and left the agency side, and now I do investments.
That is so cool. You know, there was this 30 for 30 documentary, which I'm sure most people have heard of. It was called Broke at the time. Like, it was talking about how athletes go broke. And one thing you mentioned that kind of sticks out there was like, they have so many representatives, you know, like a lot of athletes are paying this agent, this agent, this agent. Somebody's looking over their insurance, but then they also have somebody over their finances. Then they have their actual agent that's trying to do contracted deals with everybody. And they've got this person tugging at them. And they got mom and dad wanting money and cousins and so forth. All of a sudden, before you know it, that $25 million signing bonus for some of these professional athletes is right out the window. They don't even have anything to show for it. And, you know, that's one thing that there's a lot of different people that can help in different ways. But when you're getting into the finance side of things and the investment side of things, talk to us a little bit about that. Like, how are you helping athletes invest? Are you just saying, hey, like, put your money here into real estate, here's the ROI on this and so forth? Like, is that what you're doing? Like, and how do you go about like maybe educating an athlete who might not necessarily understand it fully? How do you educate them on the potential benefits of investing in real estate for themselves?
Yeah, so it's so funny because like basically like when it comes down to investing in real estate, like the first thing that you have to understand that as anybody, and it's not just athletes, but it's just anybody. So when it comes, being an athlete is similar to being self-employed. And so as an athlete, what you need to understand is you need to figure out where your revenue channels are going to come from. And so most of the time, like, and you have to see yourself as a complete business with different departments. So like at the end of the day, like a lot of times you'll get a lump sum of money and the the downfall, similar to people who win lotteries, is like if you have a lump sum of money and you don't know how to manage it to create more money, then basically you got Gucci calling you every 2 weeks. You got like, somebody hitting you up talking about, hey, I got this app, shoot me $20,000 and I'm gonna make you a unicorn investor, whatever. But like at the end of the day, it's like, okay, how can I calculate it? Like take the money that I'm earning from on the court or on the field, and how can I put it in something that's going to multiply, give me tax benefits and pay me forever. So that's the thought process that we have to kind of transition from, on just that I'm gonna just earn income, that we got to figure out exactly how can I take my earned income and create more income that pays me forever and also gives me tax benefits. So that's where real estate comes in. Like there's a number of things that you could do, with, to create passive income. I'm not a stock person. That's just not my bag. But I definitely know a lot about real estate, and that's basically what it is. So it's like, okay, like now let's look at how we evaluate assets, right? So like evaluating apartment buildings, evaluating single families, multifamilies, whatever lane you want to get into, that makes the most sense for you, like helping you actually evaluate that, structure the deal, like basically what partners to bring involved in it, because that's another thing that athletes do. They use too much of their own money. Like, you can be JVing opportunities with people, you can invest in a fund, become an LP, whatever you want to do. But there's so many different ways that you can kind of like be involved in projects where you don't have to actually be the exact point person of it, or you don't have to be all the money for it. And then also with financing, so from the under 5 unit side, I can provide finance and help them get their LLCs in order where, that they actually can show profitable revenue and stuff, build out portfolios and stuff like that.
That's so cool. It's something I geek out about because it's important for athletes to understand that. Chrissy, in your experience, how young do you think, like at what age should these athletes be thinking about this? I mean, especially now with name, image, and likeness becoming a thing in the NCAA, now it's opened up to the younger crew of 18 years old sometimes. But how old do you think these athletes should, like at what age should they start thinking about these potential opportunities as they start getting older and having these, I guess they're no longer just a football player. They're no longer just a baseball player. Or they're no longer just a basketball player or volleyball player, whatever. Maybe they're actually a business. Like you were mentioning, like they're a business and there's multiple departments within that in a sense, and they should have these vehicles for revenue. What age do you think it's important for them to start being educated on this kind of stuff?
Honestly, like the unfortunate part of being an elite athlete is that there's a level of losing your childhood, that you have, because of the way sports are in America. So unfortunately, even though it's probably not the conversation you want to have as a 16 or 17-year-old or 18-year-old, I would probably, as soon as you realize that you're going to be doing this at an elite level and at a higher level, that you need to kind of start creating yourself as a business. Like you need to create an LLC or S corp, whatever it is that makes sense structurally for you, so that you can actually house these endorsement deals. Because that's the other thing that people get caught up on is not paying taxes properly, not having things structured properly. And then because like when you look at it, if you're not actually playing for a team, when it comes down to getting loans, this is what I'm saying, other people's money, because you might think that just because I got a New Balance deal, or some deal, I forgot, somebody just literally got a deal. I think it was Paige Buchers or something like that. Like, and you think, oh, I'm playing at UConn or whatever, and I just got a deal. So now I got $100,000. Last thing you want to do is go buy one thing for $100,000. You want to leverage that money. In order to be able to leverage that money, you need to be able to show lenders, partners, all that kind of stuff that you have, that you're not insolvent, and you're basically kind of that you have the financial wherewithal business wise in order to take on these loans, these investments, all that kind of stuff. So you need to kind of have your legal and your business house in order with your LLC as soon as possible. And you also have to keep in mind that, like, if we're being honest, you are one, slip on the floor away from ending your career. period. It's not a sexy conversation to have. It's nothing that people don't want to talk about, but you can't act like this thing is going to last forever. Most things, most careers are 3.5 years. So it's like, and you're getting like whereas Bob in HR is getting, just say $3.5 million over the life of 40 years, you're getting $3.5 million in a truncated amount of time. So you got to figure out, how am I going to make that last forever? And if you stop playing at 24, 25, 27, or God forbid you get to the next level and you're just not good enough. You don't have what it takes, especially with name, image, and likeness. You might have been hot in college, but can you, most of the time, like, look at what's that guy's name that went to Gonzaga back in the day when me and you were like little
Morrison, Adam
Morrison. Was he hot? JJ Redick. Like they weren't who they were at Duke and Gonzaga. So, but if they were to capitalize off of their fame at that time, then at that point they could have had the money to create the leverage, through business ventures. So like that's why you need to kind of start as early as possible, because you never know when the lights are going to go out on you.
It's so interesting you mentioned that. Like it opens up a whole new dynamic. And one of the things we always argue this, like, should athletes get paid in college? Should they not get paid? There's that whole conversation up until the name, image, and likeness kind of just came about. And the conversation that I always had with people, I always revert back, Chrissy, to the conversation that happened on the documentary called Broke. And they were talking about Cam Newton getting his signing bonus, which is millions of dollars for a top tier pick in any major, professional sport. You get a lot of money all at once. It's a one boom. It's not your contract that's paid out weekly. It's literally all in one boom. And he had never cashed a check before. That was what the story was. He had never cashed a check before. And the reasons, and people are like, that's crazy. I'm like, is it crazy though? Because the dude, since he was probably 14 years old, had only focused on his sports. Like that's what he was doing. He never worked through college because he had a full ride scholarship. And he wasn't allowed to work, because if you go and work, then you get your scholarship revoked. So he wasn't able to pull in additional income because he was on the scholarship. So he never had to cash a check. If you really think about it, he never had to do that. And so he goes in there and he didn't have this information. And so it kind of like, now that these athletes are able to get this income, the other question comes in: would these college athletes be able to pay tax? They don't even understand taxes. Most of us don't understand taxes until we get out of high school and we start having a full-time job, and we're like, oh shoot, 40% of my paycheck's just, okay, that's not really what I'm making. Okay. So I guess my question with that comment is like, just to kind of open up the eyes of the listeners right now. Like, if you're always thinking like, well, it shouldn't be hard if you're making this much money. Well, no, because like there's a lot that goes into it that these younger individuals think of ourselves as human beings when we're younger. Like, we didn't understand any of that. So why would we expect? And we didn't come into this money all of a sudden they had. And so like, yeah, it's important to be able to understand this. I wonder, and I just want your thoughts on this. Like, should there be classes in high school for, and whether it be for finance and specific or general, I should say, like finances and all this stuff, but maybe even like athletes, those who are like athletes who are looking to do, now that the name, image, and likeness is a possibility at the next level, you don't even have to be an elite athlete at the college level to benefit off your name, image, and likeness now. Right. So like this could be for a lot of athletes, not the ones that are necessarily all going to go pro, any college athlete. So maybe in the high school level, what do you think about that? Like having like athlete classes specifically about like how to leverage your name, image, and likeness, how to do these things, how to invest in these different deals. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Honestly, like there needs to be a lot of reform to just the education model in general, because when you look at it, just everybody in America, right? So like what people don't understand and where they do themselves a disservice is that we all have the opportunity to be high earners in America, because that's just the way America's set up. So it doesn't matter what you think about yourself. There's a high possibility that you could become a high earner in America if you do some right things. So it's like what you need to do is, like, I was a super nerd when I was in high school. I took, stock classes. I took I was like members of like the investment club and all of that, because I always had an interest in it. But we need to, we don't really need to hear as much about Macbeth, as we need to hear about like we need to have a tax literacy class, because it's like there are grown people that aren't even athletes who make, $200,000, $300,000 a year, $200,000 a year, $300,000. That's not a lot of money. Like, whether people realize it or not, go live in New York City, go live in LA, go live in Columbus, shit. Like, you know what I mean? The average price on literally where I live is $556,000. Like, that's, $200,000 is not a lot of money. So like, you have to understand, but it'll get you in that tax bracket that could get you in trouble. So it's like, what you need to do is you need to start taking the classes. You need to be a little bit proactive, since yes, we need reform, but we can't wait for reform. We have to be proactive and actually start seeking out the things that are aligned with the goals that we're trying to do. So like, perfect example is like just being an athlete. Just to be an athlete, you started seeking out coaches, you started seeking out trainers, you started seeking all that. And you need to take that same mindset when you're like building a business, like off the court. So you need to start seeking out a tax advisor. You need to build a team, right? Basically, you need a tax attorney. You need a CPA. You need a finance person like me or something like that. Like I wouldn't get a financial advisor that's just like, hey, yes, you have money or whatever case may be. You need actually to start sitting with people that's like, okay, this is where I want to go. This is what I want it to look like. And then let's reverse engineer it backwards from this. And that's basically how I help people. I'm like, let's look at the goal and like, let's reverse engineer it and see exactly who we need to connect you with in order to get there. So like, that's what they need to be doing and their parents need to be doing. If you really want your kid or yourself to be elite financially, and protected. So, yes, do we need reform in education? But you cannot wait for things. And I'm big on that. Like as a woman, as a Black woman, like there's a whole lot of things that are wrong in the world that we could wait for. But honestly, waiting doesn't get anybody anywhere but bitter. so like,
that's a t-shirt idea right there.
Right.
I like that. So take out, like, let's unpack that real quick for anybody listening. Rewind it, take some notes. We can't wait for reform. Like, obviously, I think most people that I've spoken to and interacted with in my life understand that there needs to be some changes in the education sector. But yeah, I mean, when's it going to come? Can't necessarily I'm 33 years old right now and haven't seen it. So in that regard, be proactive. If you guys take anything out of that from what Chrissy was just saying, is be proactive. But I guess to follow up on that, Chrissy, you mentioned you dropped a couple of things here. Get a financial advisor, get somebody like yourself in there, like start connecting with these people, just like you'd invest in a trainer, like sports specific trainers, strength conditioning, mental conditioning. If that's the case, we've talked to a lot of mental conditioning coaches on the show. But I guess maybe some people might get a little bit, since there isn't anything in the school system right now, some people just don't know where to look. So what would your advice be to them there?
So that's the biggest thing. So when you, like, the way I do things is I take whatever interest I am and then I find the best people doing that. So like, honestly, the problem with athletes too, and why things get messed up is because there will be a guy or a girl, just say, that's in the space that everybody knows, right? And and Johnny went to Bob, so we all go to Bob. And you can't do that with your career. You can't leave that up to somebody. Like, so you have to say, okay, if I see myself being the next Steve Jobs or whatever, some tech thing, then I need to look at where, like perfect example, I know tons of people who are on venture capital funds, and I would look on Twitter or whatever and see who are the top people doing this. And then I would start parlaying myself into that network and then being quiet and learning, because the last thing you want to do is, as an athlete, full disclosure, is to tell professional people that you're looking for something, because they kind of become like vultures and try to kind of smother the situation. What you want to do is you just want to kind of come in as a standard by and, watch, learn. And then once you kind of figure out who are the players in each different arena, whatever it is, whether it's real estate, whether it's like I said, tech, whether it's toy making, whatever. I literally got a friend that works at Mattel. So whatever it is that you want to do, and then you start parlaying yourself into that network, find the top people who do it, and then and then start learning the craft just the same way that you learn the game. Like, so that's gonna take eating some humble pie. That's gonna take interning for people, shadowing people. Because if you don't have time to intern, I'm sure you have time to shadow. So like that's one of the biggest things that I even did when I started wanting to get involved in finance, and I was coming from marketing. So I would just go shadow top people. Like I would go shadow my friend that worked at a private equity fund. I would go shadow my buddy that owned apartment buildings, and I would just sit with them, see exactly how their day went. And then it kind of helped me learn exactly, okay, this is how I need to structure my company. This is how I need to structure what I'm doing. And I just was relentlessly self-educating. And like with athletes, that's what you kind of need to do, because unfortunately, the very thing that'll get you in the door can also get you taken advantage of. So like you got to be careful, like always sharing. You get what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah,
so it's like, and then you end up with the wrong line of professionals. When if you're trying to be a power player, truth be told, the goofy person that works at Wells Fargo really isn't the person for you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not doing deals. Like, they probably don't even own their house. So it's like, but if you get into the right circles, like perfect example, like I'll end up at a mastermind where people own, 10,000 units, whatever the case may be. And then it's like, you get into those right circles with guys and girls that are actually doing this every single day, doing deals, making deals happen. Like, I don't go to meetings or networking events or none of that dumb shit where like deals don't get done. Like, I only go places that deals get done. And I started doing that because I was quiet enough to just parlay myself into the industry, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. I love it. I love how just clear you are with that. You're not sugarcoating it. It's important. And so to that point, I want to tell these young athletes that if you're looking and like parents as well, like parents who are out there trying to help their, son or daughter, trying to find the right people to help them, they might realize like, okay, I need to start doing this. They might be listening to this. So start now. Don't wait until it's last minute, because then you might find yourself being like, well, I just need to find the person. So who's the most popular right now? And that seems like you said, Bob. So John went over here with Bob. So we're just going to go to Bob because it's last minute. No, start educating yourselves now so you can get in there and you give yourself time to observe and apply stuff that's being said and figuring it out on your own, so that you know that you're making the right choice. Because if you have to do it last minute, then you might find yourself in a predicament, because you're going to go with whoever is the loudest, I guess, so to speak. So
yeah, whoever has the best sales pitch, whoever has the best, closing gifts, like, because that's the thing too. Like, it's like, because even this is what people don't realize, like, and athletes don't realize, like, there is not just athletes who are getting romanticized, like, dating clients in the sense of, let's go to, the Buckeyes game. I'm going to take you down to the field. Look at this, blah, blah, blah. Because, truth be told, people want people's business. So it's like you have to, and when you're a young kid, and a lot of times if you're a young kid and you come from nothing and somebody says, here's a BMW. Oh, here's this, here's that, then it's easy for you to feel, number one, obligated, and it's easy for you to say, oh, well, this person is killing it on the outside, when truth be told, that you don't realize that everything that you're getting, you're basically, they're recouping it in their fees once you become a client. You know what I mean? So you just bought yourself a BMW early. But like, so it's just important for, if you want something in life, you have to take an interest in it, period. You can't sit there and, like, imagine, and just on a like layman's term, imagine you're trying to date somebody, but you got somebody dating the person for you. You're like, hey, like, go talk to this girl over here for me, and go take her on a couple dates and then bring her back as my wife. Like, what?
Yeah, that's like stuff you see in elementary school. Like, yeah, that doesn't work.
Well, and that's how athletes approach their business life. It's like, oh, I hired Bob, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna just sit back and Bob is just gonna, bring it back. Like, no, that's not how you do things. And then you wonder, like, oh, well, why is this not working? Well,
yeah, dude, this is super cool. And I think if we look at the athletes that have had a lot of success outside of their careers, look at Shaquille O'Neal. I would love to, I know he's the extreme example, so people are going to be like, well, that's extreme, but there's a lot of other ones out there. I'm just going to use Shaq because he's very popular and he's on TV still, so people hear him all the time. But Shaq has invested a lot, and he did so throughout the duration of his career. Not only did he go and get his education from college, but like he also invested. He's been investing throughout the entire career. He kept it kind of quiet. It's not public information all the time, but now he kind of shares a lot of those things. I've listened to him on a podcast before where he talked about some of the investments that he made. What was it? Papa John's. Like, he's like big part of all that stuff. And he's made some stupid investments, but he's also made some very, very smart investments that have helped him like way more income now than he ever had in his basketball career, which is crazy to say because he made millions upon millions of dollars during his basketball career, one of the top centers to ever play the game. But now he set himself up for the rest of his life. This is generational wealth that he's created. And it's because he was proactive about that. And he went about it the right ways while he was killing it on the court.
Yeah, and even you look at Alvin Johnson, like Alvin Johnson, he's a former NBA player and he owns like, half of the Southwest of the United States with real estate almost. Like he's developing, he's doing all these things, but it came from taking an interest in his next step at the same intensity that he had when he was building his career as an NBA player. So like, that's what they have to understand. You look at even Kobe, like, everybody points to the body armor investment, but like Kobe was okay to step away from basketball because of the fact that once he mapped out what he wanted to do next, he transferred that intensity, right? So like, if you look at people don't really like when people talk about addictions, like the most successful people that kind of overcome addiction, like you even look at Grant Cardone, they transfer one addiction to the next. I hate to say it like that, like, which sounds weird to say it, but it is just true. Like, you know what I mean? So like most people who, if you have that kind of intensity for a game to even get to a professional level, then you have that in you. You just got to transfer that same thing, because we're on the flip side of it. If you don't transfer that, that's when you see people start going off the rails, because like how you do anything is how you do everything, i.e. Lamar Odom. Like when you're super talented like that, it's easy to go off the rails because like anything you do, negative or positive, is going to be that same intensity, like period. Like, and I know, because I'm an intense person. Like literally everything, when I played sports, when I played like when I got into business, everything was just hyper focused, wake up at 4 a.m. Like probably my mom probably called me a psycho type of thing, because that's just how you do anything, is how you do everything. So you just got to transfer that same intensity.
I love that. I mean, and a lot of athletes just realize that you're a competitor. You're into sports for a reason. You love them because of the intensity that they are, but channel that into other sides too, which is the business side. And realize a couple of things I'm taking away from this interview is just realize you are a brand, and that's okay. Like there's a couple, like here's the thing. I coach younger athletes, 16, 17-year-old kids in basketball. And the thing is, there's so many ways to like brand yourself the right way. So, like do it the right way. There's a company called Trophy Case, and you can make your own like digital trading cards for yourself. Like that's your brand. And then on the back, you can have all the links to your stuff, and like brand that right now and get that out there. You're a company. You need to start treating yourself as such. Like that's what you're going to be able to leverage. And that's a blessing to be able to leverage it, but you got to do it the right way. And I want to ask you, Chrissy, as we're, kind of coming to the end of the interview, I want to ask you about the real estate side of things, from your experience, since that is your expertise. Like, what is the main benefit of an athlete investing in real estate? Everybody hears that, investing in real estate, investing in this or that. Like, what does that even mean to some people? Let's break it down in layman's terms. I know there's a lot of listeners, maybe parents, that understand what that means to invest in real estate. Does it mean like I give you $1,000 and like you put it into something, or is this like I buy a full house? What if I don't have the money for a full house? Like, what are the types of, how do you like invest in real estate, and what do you see as the most common for the athletes you've worked with?
Yeah, so it like first, like less high level, like you got to pick a lane. So you can do commercial, you could do industrial, warehouse, all that. You could do single and multifamily, which is 4 units or less, or just kind of single multifamily. But so when it comes down to it, so let's just go with single family, right? Single and multifamily. So the main benefits of it is, like I said, if I gave you $100,000 and it just sits there, number one, like I understand everybody hates when everybody say it, but inflation is a real thing. So inflation, okay? So every 30 days right now, with what's going on in the economic market, is you're losing 1% of your dollar's value every 30 days, okay? So like that's bananas, okay? So like the first thing you want to do is the money that you have, you want to protect it. So you want to get into something that's also appreciating. So the flip side of inflation is that if you have it in an asset that appreciates, then that same dollar no longer loses value. It gains momentum. Okay. So that's the first thing that you want to do. You want to protect that. So you always want to have, maybe 3-4 months of living expenses, but then put the rest of that, just say like the $100,000, you want to leverage that. And so like, if you're buying a single or a multifamily house, like just say then you're going to take that and make it into a down payment for an asset. So usually with real estate, however much money you have, like typically you could, we look at like 20% down or whatever, like depends on what people's credit is. Like usually you could buy it 3 or 4 times more than what you already have. Okay. So just say if you have $20,000, and at that point you can pretty much essentially buy $100,000 or whatever. So at that point you're buying more. Okay. So like that $100,000, you just put $25,000 over there on the down payment or something. Now you got $100,000 asset and you have, the $75,000 left. Okay. So see how we just made more money. Next is the tax benefits. So in 6 months, as that appreciates, if you want to take money out of that, now you have an asset that you can leverage and take money out of via a refinance or whatever case may be. So when you refinance, you can hold the assets still and continue to collect the rent and the cash flow every single month. But a refinance is tax-free. So if you go make $100,000, Uncle Sam says, bang, 40%. Like if you pull $100,000 out of a cash flowing asset, then at that point, you got $100,000 because it's tax free. You get what I'm saying? And this is how everyday people get rich, period. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, you see how much money I just created from $25,000. And on top of that, like if you like, $100,000 house, like that's probably like a $400 mortgage. Then you're sitting there and you're collecting $1,000 or $1,500 in rent every single month. So you're getting stability, as far as stable income as well. So it's like you got tax benefits, you got cash flow, you have appreciation, like you're winning big time. And then if you scale that and you continue to do that and you just say transfer that to buildings where, you have over 32 units, you have 100 units, whatever the case may be, then it's that same thing at scale. So basically that $100,000 cash out refinance becomes $1 million refinance, but that's all tax-free money that you're making and you're leveraging it versus just like, constantly your dollar's losing value, all these things, you only made money once, So
that's so awesome. That's the stuff I wanted to hear. Like I want the people listening to understand that concept. Like to break it down even more. Let's say you have that $100,000, and what Chrissy was just saying was like every 30 days it drops 1%. Like so, if you just hold on to $100,000 just sitting there in the bank or just in your house, let's say you got a stack of bills, it got $100,000. Let's just okay. 30 days from now, that's actually that $100,000 might be $100,000 in your hand, but it's actually worth 99,000 because you've lost 1% on it because of the way that inflation is happening. That's just the reality of economics right now. Like Chrissy said, like that's where we're at currently in our country, and it's going to probably continue that way. So, and then if you just keep on holding on to that, you might think you have $100,000, but no, you actually have like $98,000, and it just continues to go down and down and down as time goes on because the dollar loses its value. So yeah, while you have $100,000 in your hand with just stacks of bills, it actually isn't worth $100,000. Whereas if you take that and put part of that into an asset like that, all the benefits that come from it, like Chrissy just mentioned, is why you do that. That's why you want to invest in real estate. That's why athletes should probably be looking into opportunities like that, as if they realize that they're going to be going into the next level and they might be getting some deals and they can leverage their brand. That's probably a huge, and that's for anybody. Real estate's huge for anybody, but in the, I guess the heart of this conversation, we're talking about athletes specifically. So
yeah, and you're looking at the interest rate. So like, look at the interest rate. You go pay 4%, just say on an investment property. Like, I mean, it's less than, and honestly, that 4%, just say like when you do a cash out refinance, which is tax free, you go pull out $100,000 tax free. Then 9 times out of 10, because interest rates are pretty low right now and inflation is high, guess what? That $100,000, like you're only basically probably going to pay like an extra $1 or $2 a month on that same mortgage that you're already paying. So like imagine like, so basically you gave somebody an extra $2 a month to take $100,000. And if you go make $100,000, Uncle Sam says, hey, you got to give me 40 grand of it and you keep 60.
Yeah, dude, I think that's just,
like
disgusting.
What? That doesn't even make sense. You know what I mean? So and on top of that, it pays you forever. So you go sit there and slip on a wet spot, you know, it playing basketball, or you go get, you know, numb leveled on the field, you know, like go get sacked or something, you can't play again. Guess what? That asset is going to pay you forever. And it also opens up the door for you to get more and more assets, because the money that you're taking from it, you could go purchase more assets. You know, you can take advantage of, you know, the exchange process and all that stuff, you know, if Biden doesn't get rid of it. But, you know, I try to stay away from politics, but, you know, and purchase more assets that pay you forever. So, you know,
it's so cool hearing from somebody who's an expert in the field, because the people might be listening like, oh, it sounds too easy. That's kind of why people get rich quick around here, if they know what they're doing. Like, you know, they go to somebody like yourself and they figure out, oh yeah, like if I do have the income to put in here, I could get rich pretty quickly in that sense. Like I've been around plenty of people who within about a 2 or 3 year window have 2 or 3 properties now, because of how quickly the cash flow can come in and the benefits that come from it. Just like everything you mentioned, I'll just echo everything you said. And I would just, again, encourage the athletes and the parents that are listening to this show to please educate yourselves as quickly as possible, young as possible, so that, you know, later on you can build this generational wealth with people like Chrissy, who are experts in this field. So Chrissy, real quick, if somebody does have questions, they want to find you or anything of that nature, how can they find you? Where do they find you? Do you have any like business pages open? Is there a social media that they can find you? Where can we find you?
So you can hit me up on Twitter. So it's just my name, Chrissy with an I, Sanders 8, or Instagram, Chrissy with an I, Sanders, or, you know, if you Google Chrissy Sanders, you'll find my business page, and you could text me. Like, so my cell phone number is public, so like you can call or text me or email me, whatever you like to do. So
I dig that. I don't know, like you're living on edge right there. If you're letting that be, that's cool though.
Hey, it is what it is in the sense of the remote environment that we live in, unfortunately. So it's like, thank God that, you know, if somebody got crazy, Apple does have a block number feature. So
that is good, right? Technology is a crazy thing.
I just gotta I'm open book, man. So
I love it. We'll link to Twitter, Instagram, and then we'll put the Google description here at the bottom as well on the description of the podcast. And for anybody out there, if you want to learn from Chrissy, you want to get some advice from her and utilize her services, go check that out. But I just want to say thanks, Chrissy. Like, it's been a cool conversation. I geek out about this stuff, and it's not one that we've had enough of on the show. We need more of these types of conversations. So I just am greatly appreciate you being willing to share your information, your expertise with us on the show. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For those listening, hopefully you enjoyed the show. Make sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll be coming to you next week with another interview. Take care.
Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.